Broadcast is live.
Welcome to our 5th edition of Safari Talks. We have some exciting guests with us tonight that I'd like to introduce. We are going to be very much favoring taking a virtual trip into Botswana, which we're all looking forward to. People keep asking me and saying, Beks, when the borders open up or when you can travel, what's the first place that you're going to go to? And in my mind, I've been dreaming of this destination because we designed and built, and the camp is ready for its first guest. This outstanding tented camp in the northern part of Moremi in a Khwai community area. And it's on the outskirts of the Okavango Delta. And it's just this year with the Okavango Delta filling up, it's in its full glory. And it's so frustrating that we can't be there to see it. But before we go into those details, and we've got just the right person to tell us quite a lot about the Okavango Delta, and particularly about the Khwai Community Area. But in the meantime, I want to introduce our guests tonight. We've got Debra Fox and Chris Browne, who are co-owners of Fox Browne. We've been working together for the last 8 years. In fact, our first project was working together at Somalisa. And it was our first time, obviously, working together. They are very much on the creative side, and they've been very patient over the years in entertaining my crazy ideas that I hope to achieve the most craziest amount of time. But anyway, we won't get into that right now. But Debra come from a background of tourism. They were formerly actually in our industry, so they were actually sitting where we are in terms of operational. And they were chief operating officers and creative director, respectively, for CC Africa, who is now called NBeyond. And in fact, they still work with NBeyond today as one of their clients. But they design and build these beautiful bespoke luxury properties all over Africa. And in fact, they've recently started working throughout the world, including their recent opening of their offices in London, where they're working on some properties up in the UK. But together, they're a very skilled team, and they offer direction and assistance for the development of luxury lodges and camps, lifestyle, retail outlets, remote private homes, and small hotels. They deliver architectural design, interior design, hospitality, training, and operations from concept development through to the final delivery of the guest experience. So they are stationed in Joburg, where they currently are sitting under lockdown. Their offices, of course, in London is pretty much experiencing the same. And then we've got Michael Kwambula, who is the design director at 10 House Structures. Michael is an architect, but I feel so weird calling you an architect because actually you are a creative architect. You're not a traditional architect in the boring sense. Please excuse me. Michael really brings the flair to architecture, and he comes with more than 20 years worth of experience in architectural design. He's with an organization called 10 House Structures, and he resides in Cape Town, and phenomenally not too far away from me, probably less than 5 kilometers from where I am. He started 10 House Structures with his first projects in 2012. And Michael has worked with us over the last 8 years. His first project with us was actually Somalisa as well, and he's since done a multitude of projects with us, including my personal projects at Zambezi House in Victoria Falls. And he's worked on a number of designs for tented camps, lodges, including East Africa. And of course, he's also worked with us on the recent project at Khwai Leadwood as the lead architect, and also he's helped in managing the project and really helping us to deliver the ultimate experience that incorporates interiors and exteriors. So that's Michael Kwambula. And then, of course, we've got what I would say probably our superstar of the evening, Dutch, who's our head guide in Botswana. Dutch is head guide for African bush camps at Khwai, and he's a full-blown local. And he's been guiding over the last 10 years, and of those 10 years, 6 years has been with African bush camps, where he's guided in a number of places throughout Botswana. But Dutch he oozes with passion, and he'll be speaking to us today about the experiences of Khwai, why this crazy place called Khwai, and he'll speak quite a fair bit into that. So if we can get into it, but before that, I just want to thank Under the Influence, who's been phenomenal in sponsoring all our wines. Under the Influence is the company that supplies us with all our beverages for our guests in our camps. And tonight they've supplied us pre-lockdown with a Tukara. Thank you very much for that, Under the Influence. But we also want to thank Tukara for the amazing giveaways that they have for all our audiences. So if you could sign up to our newsletters and follow us on our social media, you stand a chance to win something from a giveaway from Tukara Wines. So to Tukara Wines as well, thank you very much, and cheers to the four of you guys. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So if we can just kick off, I mean, we are in the week where we're celebrating Africa Day, which was on the 25th of May. And it's really a pretty nostalgic time about the beauty of Africa. And it's even more so and probably appreciated a lot more at this time when we aren't able to really go out there and really enjoy it for its beauty. But nothing stops us from the ability of being able to celebrate it. So as I said earlier on today, we really are feeling a pull towards the Khwai Community Area. And with a brand new camp, Khwai Leadwood, just waiting to open its doors. It's a unique location, its design, and really all of us have put our minds to creating what is a piece of art, because that's what these safari camps are actually. It's a piece of art that talks to the country, that talks to the landscapes, that talks to the culture of the people, the rich culture of the Khwai Community Area and the surrounds, going way back into the traditional bushmen that lived in the area. So we really want to honor and celebrate Africa Day and link back to the African landscapes and discussion of Khwai Community Concession and what makes it unique so much that we've decided to set up a new camp, Khwai Leadwood, which, by the way, has been in the making. Debra, is it like 4 or 5 years?
I think it was the first camp you called us about, Beks, before Somalise even. Yeah. We were excited about it.
Gosh, so this has been in the making for 4 or 5 years, and at some point we misfired. But this is why it's particularly special, because we've eventually managed to get this off the ground. I mean, designs, the tents have been sitting in storage. It's had a slightly different turn. We've updated it and done a lot more work on it compared to the original times. But certainly, it's now a piece of art that we can all be proud of. So. I just want to get back to Africa, get back to Botswana. We all share our passion for the environment. We all share our passion for design and for these locations. And Dutch, you're used to these places. These places are like firsthand for you. And so before we actually go into the discussion, I dream about coming to your local area, to Khwai, when the international borders open. I'm quite interested. What do you dream about? Where do you want to go when the borders open, when the governments can allow us to travel? Is there a place in Africa that you dream about going to?
Right. Good evening, everyone. You know, since I was born here, my love to Botswana, to the bush, is always, you know, not a boring life. And exactly after when everything is opened to us, I'll first go around our camps to try and check if everything is like as we left it. And I know we've got some guides there who are taking care of the properties. Guides are clearing the roads. And this is what I'm going to go around to check if things are ready for our business again. Now, truly speaking, that's where my heart is. And I'll first go and check if everything is ready for business again.
That's great. I mean, during this time, Dutch, you've also been able to speak to your colleagues, and everybody's been sharing excitement about being able to open their borders. I mean, we all feel like a pent-up horses ready to bolt, and it's quite exciting. But let's bring Michael in, because it all starts with, you know, if I can maybe just look at it logically, it starts from the crust, from the outside. When you go to a place, what does it look like outside? But all in the meantime, you're really experiencing this breath of newness in terms of the landscape, the wilderness areas, driving through the community when you arrive, and then all of a sudden arriving at this beautiful oasis that is not expected. And Michael, you were responsible for helping us design the tents. You guys have built the tents through tent structures. Can you tell us for you how the design of these tents and the architecture actually speaks into the landscape? Because we always talk about how the design and the feel of the camp really needs to be true to the landscape. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, every landscape is different, and I think Debra and Chris will agree. There's always something locally contextual that needs to be brought into to make it unique. And I think Fox Browne found that in the local village with some of the mud walls and the bottles that people use to punctuate the mud and bring in some light and add some variance and use and recycle materials. And so incorporating elements from the local community and at the same time respecting the landscape in which we sit. I think as human beings we haven't exactly excelled at not leaving a trace behind us wherever we go, and we have to walk this delicate balance between providing the opportunity to preserve these amazing pristine wilderness areas without leaving too much of a mark, and provide refuge for guests who are first-time visitors and maybe are not too comfortable being out in the bush with these big animals all around, and yet also be sensitive to the surroundings and try and get the structures to blend in as much as possible, make them look like they were meant to be there as much as possible, and without detracting the eye from the wonderful landscape around. Which I think the Khwai site is one of the most it's breathtaking. Every time we've been there on a site meeting, a crocodile floats by in the river, or a hippo pops its head out, and you can almost touch it, and then the sunsets. We've got photographs forever of the sunsets at Khwai that are just magical. So I think the guest experience is what is the first thing that we try to deliver, and if they enjoy the comfort and feel like they've been in something special from an accommodation point of view, that's amazing. But I know that the experiential part of it and the guides like Dutch are the key in what people enjoy, and the comfort from the interiors and from the architecture, if we can deliver that in a good way, and that's obviously the aim.
Thanks, Michael. And really, you're sort of the creator of the outside, but what I have appreciated working with you is that you also have an appreciation of how the outside actually translates to the inside, and that's why I think there's been a very sort of easy transition working with you and working with Fox Browne in terms of the understanding of what outside needs to speak into it. And this concept of the architecture and interiors coming together and actually designing it simultaneously has been a dream. It's something that has been very important for us to get right. And we maybe give a little sneak preview of what the original renders look like for the camps. Nowadays we have to take advantage of artistic impressions and what they can actually develop and what they can bring through in terms of translating. So here we have these amazing decks that really speak into the wow factor of the landscape. So before we have Chris and Debra speak a little bit into the interiors and their inspiration from what we discussed into rolling out this most amazing creation, maybe you can tell us a little bit, once we see some of those images, how you were inspired and how in your minds you guys created this local component, this landscape phenomenon into actual reality.
Yeah, look, I'm a firm believer in that the design process is a collaborative one. As architects, we facilitate the process as best we can, but everybody has a say, and from you as the client, Beks, to the locals, to the guides, to the actual landscape itself. And in fact, the landscape here dictated quite strongly what we could and couldn't do, because we had to work with what we had and make obviously it's so photogenic, but we had a certain amount of river frontage that we had to use to the best of our abilities, and in a way, it's actually easier, because one of the things I learned at architectural school was that out of the greatest constraint comes the greatest creativity. And we were put under quite a lot of constraint here to try and make this camp work. And I think it's worked out very well. And I think with Fox Browne's input together, we've come up with some really good solutions to make what is really an intimate camp. But yet, I don't think when you sit in any one of the rooms that you feel like you're on top of the next door neighbor. And so those are the challenges. And I mean, the landscape, as you saw from the picture there, I mean, it's just absolutely stunning. And we had to work around anthills, and the anthill created the symmetry that worked out that the fire pit could happen on the other side. And that's, we just take the lead from what's there and where we want to position it, where we want to arrive from. And it went back and forth a few times, but eventually I think we arrived at the right solution. And it really is, as I said, the landscape is, you would have to do a very bad job to stuff it up, but I think we did a pretty good job in making the best of it. But the landscape does forgive us a lot. It's amazing up there.
Yeah. Chris?
Well, I mean, as you said earlier, Beks, I mean, that first discussion was, I think, nearly 6 years ago. And I remember our first trip up to Khwai and being overwhelmed by the green, because I think we came at the end of midsummer and it was so green. And, in Botswana, it's in the Delta, there's so much, as you know, there's so much competition in the large industry, and you have to look really hard to find inspiration and the kick at that moment of the ideas coming. And for me, for us, it was definitely the palette there. As Michael said, it's nature. That's really always the first inspirer. And so that was it. And then it all just seems to tumble away. And 6 years later, here we are. And we did the renders and we bought the furniture, and then suddenly it was in place and we have a photograph and a camp is born. And it's a really amazing process, because it is just, as you said, Michael, it's kind of easy, there's a rhythm, and it's just
we're lucky.
Yeah.
We're lucky. I think this is our.
In the meantime, there's been Somalisa Acacia, there's been Bulu, and then all the way back around to Khwai.
Keep coming back to Khwai.
Yes, but we're not talking about those ones yet.
But we're lucky because this is our, Michael, it's our fourth project together. I mean, we did Somalisa, then we did Bumi, then we did Thorntree. We've kind of got this natural working relationship, which I think, Beks, your point of it's not just the outside and it's not just the inside. And Dutch, it's not just about the guides or the experience. It's when those three things come together that we create the magic. If we're all working, we're working with you operationally, what has to happen. We're working with Michael from an architectural point of view. The interiors are speaking, and then you get the magic. Yeah. And that's what I think Khwai has.
Yeah, but I must say also at this point that yes, the nature informs things, the local culture and custom informs things, but at the heart of the Bush Camp's the ethos and brand is really you, Beks. And that's your way of being and your way of just communication and your sense of style, and really plays a very big role in how we've approached the design in all of the lobbies. That there's a sense of home, that there's a sense of authenticity, which is, I know, very, it's an important word and concept, and it's real.
It always reels us in when we get too carried away.
So so does that mean that also my timelines are real in terms of my expectations?
No. How soon?
So that's what I think we always try and capture. Besides this amazing, beautifully designed tent and the stylish, chic interiors, it has to have a sense of place, a sense of home, and a sense of realness. And I think this camp will have that when you open the doors. It's going to be very exciting. But also during that whole process of the Khwai design, we've seen the whole African bush camp design ethos evolve as well. And I think 6 years ago, you've really grown as a company in so many ways. And I think the aesthetic direction and the aesthetic space you have as an organization is very strong. And that's been so lovely to watch.
But the heart is always, the heart of the brand is the people.
Yeah.
And Dutch, I think you and the guiding teams, that was one of the first things I think Beks told us is that, I mean, all the teams are important in African bush camps, but the guiding teams are such an important part of the experience that's delivered. We can deliver beautiful camps, gorgeous interiors, but at the heart of it, it's how you deliver and get your guides to deliver that experience.
Thank you.
I think you guys have hit the right balance between the experiential and comforts. You know, you don't sit in one of your rooms and feel like you're completely disconnected from what's outside. It's just the right connection of you're in the bush, you feel it, but you're safe and you're comfortable and it's beautiful. And that's I think the way to go. And then from a family point of view as well, on the African bush camps is also, so it's an all-round experiential journey that one goes on with African bush camps, which I think is
Thank you very much, you both. I mean, look, it's certainly as the business has grown, as I've found, is that the first camp, we built everything else. We designed, did the interiors, we cleared out our houses, had empty houses, and we built our first camp 6 weeks ago. And we did a fantastic job, and we did at the time. But as we've added on more camps and they've become a lot busier, and also as the industry's expectations and people's expectations have changed, it's been a very big struggle to try and find the balance of what do we create. And I almost feel like you say, Chris, I almost feel like we've found our place. We've arrived where we feel comfortable in our space, where we can present a product or a camp alongside nature, but most importantly, with the people that we have to actually deliver that experience that complements everything. And you guys have been very instrumental in helping us grow and evolve during that process. But what I want to go back to is that obviously we need to acknowledge the fact that we had a lockdown because of COVID-19, and COVID-19 has been something that's affected everyone globally. So it's not something that we can particularly ignore. Although I would far much rather be talking about the exciting new opening of Khwai Leadwood. But there's been an effect because this camp was supposed to be open 1st of June. We're now rolling it out to 1st of August. And Dutch, you were amongst our staff compliments when we were busy trying to implement all the new initiatives and implement hygiene procedures and social distancing measures and all of that. And you've been at the forefront of getting involved with also trying to educate some of our guides, some of our learners out in the field. As during this reduced times, a lot of our staff are still going out on game drives, monitoring, giving some of our staff opportunities to go on game drives who've never been on game drives. But through this, we obviously have to act responsibly, but at the same time, find a way that we can impart our skills to some of our learner guides. Guys, do you want to maybe speak a little bit into that for us in terms of what you've been doing during this course of time?
Well, that's great. During this time of COVID-19, we didn't take almost everybody from camps and send them back home, but at least there is a team in each camp who are there to look after the properties. And then we found that there are some guides, and we've got these initiatives whereby guides with their trainee guides should be out in the bush, go and do a lot of practices, and what we have like a look back and learn. A trainee guide will ask, okay, guys, during our time in the peak season, this is what we've been doing, and now practically taking them on the ground now. Okay, if I take an example with DT, the trainee guide in Khwai, so he's been in camp for.
So if I can just interrupt you, DT, let's give some perspective on DT. Now, DT started with us as a driver. He was a driver in Maun, picking up supplies from the grocery store and dropping them off at the office. So he has come quite a long way from, being a low-level driver, delivery man, to taking interest in delivering stuff in the camps. And then he was like, oh, what's this about? And he's now forging ahead with a career as a guide, which is quite phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then you'll find that part of our training strategy is not all about research alone. So then, as new guides, we try send them out in safari with other guides, and then they take themselves some notes, and tomorrow is go with another guide. And now this was their time for asking questions, trying to compare a lot of things. Then we give answers. And other things is from our daily mandate was to try and go around the roads, to try and maintain the roads. And at the same time, we come back and meet up with the hostess, because we know that we don't guide adults only, we also have kids. So okay, what do we have for kids? Because they've been in the camp when we come back from the bush, and then they tell us, guys, we've been molding animals using the clay soil. So this is what we're going to do. Okay, we have molded the termite mound, and then you guys, you need to give us the information about the structure, the queen, the king, workers, and soldiers. So what is the relationship there? Because this is what they are prepared to come in and teach the kids. And the other thing is that now back in the camp, we talk about a lot of, so this was like a trauma. The whole world had a trauma because of this COVID-19. It shaked almost everywhere. So then we need, as guides, we need to be sure that when the business comes back, we need to be ready to host these people. So then we need to be extra mile. We need to make sure that I'll be guiding someone who maybe lost a friend somewhere through this disease. So now I need to be there for my guest. So I need to be into his shoes. So this is the idea. So then we talk a lot about it, because this is gonna be the main problem. So now, and at the same time, we know our pride of lions, especially in Khwai area, the movement of animals. Now, without vehicle movement, what was the positive impact in the area? So then we have found that the high numbers of lions now, they're moving all around, especially in the camp, a lot of elephants. And we did some drives in Muremi, because that's where we do some of the activities. Then we found that Muremi has got everything, lions, wild dogs, even cheetahs. You know, the cheetah in that terrain, we see them not quite often, but maybe after 2 months. But this time we recorded several male cheetahs roaming around the area. So then the area is very, very good. And this is what has been done in the ground during this COVID-19. And of course, clearing the rooms, clearing the pathways, making sure that the surrounding is very clean. Everything has been done during this COVID-19.
So Dutch, I always enjoy talking to you about Khwai and about wildlife around Botswana. And one of the things that I need to acknowledge from our audience is you've always been the action man kind of guy. Even when you pick me up at the airport, when you pick up our guests at the airport, you always have that thing about you that says, I'm ready for action, including your dress code tonight, by the way, which is absolutely phenomenal. Everybody's commenting about it and saying, you're ready for the future. You're that futuristic guy with your smart jacket, headphones. So everybody's commending you for your dress code for that. But what I really want you to articulate for people that have not been to Khwai, if I'm a guest, I'm going to spend 2-3 nights. We usually recommend 3 nights, actually, because then you have 2 full days. Can you tell us about why Khwai has been so special for people to go to, despite people saying, oh, but there might be too many people, it's not a private concession, and it is one of those phenomenal areas where we operate outside of our concessions, but because the wildlife is that good. Can you talk a little bit into what are the things that people want to see, and within 3 days, what can guests expect to see in the Khwai area?
Well, Beks, Khwai is situated in the northern side of the Okavango Delta. So then, the Khwai area has got one river system. If we trace it back from the main source, when it hits the delta, the panhandle, so then there's an upper channel which is called the Ngoha channel. It stretches all the way up to Mauna Chira, and by the time it changed the name into Khwai River, that's just after Kakanaka in Muremi. And then, so then the river start concentrating on the main channel. So then there's less seasonal floodplains, and the seasonal floodplains are the one that disturb the movement of animals. Now, when you are in Khwai, you find that animals are not being cornered. No islands, no big islands. We would corner a certain species in there for several months. So then they move as they want. And the river has been there for many years. This is one of the oldest river where you can see very big crocodiles. But now, with having a one river system, so then we find that we get a lot of animals through recruitment. Some they can come from Mombo in the delta. So some they can come from Linyanta side. They move up to Khwai because the river did not dry up. So then in off season, when the pens, natural waterholes are drying up, then animals will move to Khwai area. Then remember, the animal in the delta, they don't migrate because there's a lot of water, there's food everywhere. So now being in Khwai for 3 nights, for me, it's really that would be a very good itinerary because of the multi-purpose that we use as Khwai is set as the multi-purpose because there are a lot of activities like game drives. We've got walks of 2 different types. We've got Mukoro, and we do the drives in Morema again. So now you find that there is where you can feel that flexibility being in the concession. So that means you can be able to track, demonstrate knowledge on how you find the wildlife, and you can still do the night drives. You do the village tour. That's very special because people, they come from Europe to come and see wildlife along with culture. So we mix all these together, and you find that when you are on your day number 4, you still feel it's not enough because you still want to do something. Because talking about the crowd, you just said it's crowded, Beks, but we don't see that because we have got a newborn camp, Khwai Leadwood. It's set aside the western side of the village, and it's a very big area there where we do the drives there, and also that our guides, as per from our training in Somalisa, we talk about guest experience. So then we know that these people, they might come from overpopulated areas. Now, when they're here with us, they really need a special time, special moment. I'd rather give you back a sundowner with maybe someone will say that's a bad site for sundowner. As long as you are feeling your time there alone, for me, it's fine. So all the guides are.
It is a solitude that people recognize, and it's not necessarily about chasing the big 5 as some people do. It's about finding that place of solitude, that alone time that is still epic, and you're able to really appreciate and feel like you're the only one that's there. And I mean, you're the master at that. But you and your team, you lead a great guiding team, and in a sense, you do have it easy. I mean, over a period of 3 nights, most of our guests, the reports are coming out that seeing lion, leopard, wild dog, hyena, and sometimes with wild dog puppies, hyena puppies. But certainly do an extremely good job of making sure that people are raving about the Khwai area, and that's why it remains the place that it is. But I just want to flick back very quickly to Chris and Debra. I mean, you guys have designed lodges, camps, hotels around the world. And one of the places we haven't talked about is India under challenging conditions. You've designed places in London, in East Africa, and most of your work has been in Southern Africa. But why don't you tell us a little bit about, firstly, if you don't mind sharing, what has been the biggest, the most challenging project for you to do ever in your history? And after that, what I'd be interested is are you seeing any trends in terms of briefing design-wise, looking into the future of you incorporating the new norms into establishment? Is that a bit too early, or are you seeing some of that? I'm sure you guys, being the creative people you are, you're starting to think around those areas. You answer the first bit.
Well, I mean, maybe I'll answer the challenging, the one about the challenge first, because I think there are two projects that have been particularly challenging. India is challenging just for the number of people that we've had to deal with and the complexities of the culture. But really, one of our first projects we ever did together was in Ngorongoro Crater Lodge in Tanzania, many years ago. I'm not going to say how many years ago.
1995.
Just as El Nino hit, and we were losing vehicles, and silver was getting stolen, and we didn't know how the duties. Tanzania had just been opened to South Africa, so it was really, really challenging. And I would say that was tough, but we did meet each other there, and we fell in love. So that was a good part of that. And another very challenging project actually is Botswana. I mean, Dutch spoke about how the river floods and it dries and then it floods. And of course, everyone wants to open just after the floods. So we're all trying to get our stuff in just as it's flooding. And watching 20 and 40-foot containers disappear under the water and having to unpack them.
As we did with Khwai Leadwood.
Just like we did with Leadwood. I'd say that was pretty challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
and then on trends, I don't know.
But Botswana always looks like this lovely, benign, peaceful, tranquil landscape.
Yeah.
But man, it's difficult to operate in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's pretty challenging.
Yeah.
And then trends, I don't know, Chris, if you want to comment on any of
well,
that.
The question everybody's asking at the moment is, what is, besides the trends thing, is what's the impact of COVID? So I'm going to keep the COVID answer quite short. Is that in our world, I don't think it'll have much of an impact because we're not a 500, we don't do 500 room hotels. We're not cruise ships. We work in remote areas where there's small communities and often social distancing happens already, It's there's lots of space.
And people are brave who come to Africa already. They're pretty brave to come on safari. So those people are going to take the trouble to come. I mean, there's so many other things that could affect them long before COVID does in this environment.
But what's interesting about your question, specifically referring to trends, is that I think the role and the image of a safari lodge is actually having a huge impact on the global hospitality design world. So many big operators, hotel groups, designers are all looking to the safari lodge model
capture the feeling,
to capture that essence and the spirit and the intimacy that's been captured. So I think it's an interesting thing. We've done a flip flop. People are looking to us now, looking to Africa for inspiration, looking to the developing world, rather than the traditional way of looking to the first developed design infrastructural world. I think it's been, that for me has been really interesting in the last 2 years to see.
One other thing to add to that is I think we are going to see more people wanting private villas, private vehicles. So your family suites that you guys have got, I think those are going to, the villas at Boomi that you guys sell, I think there'll be a bit of a trend towards people initially as they come out of this phase looking to have those sort of experiences as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for that insight. And Michael, from a design perspective, what are you thinking in terms of
I think
anything different in terms of design? Because I mean, your design aspect of it is not just, although you focus on architectural outside, but it is also really sort of spatial design from the experiences that I've worked with you. Have there been any requests from your end, or is there any sort of thinking behind in terms of what the future might look like in designing spaces that are going to be adaptable for the new norms?
Well, I think we're going to have to see how the industry, certainly in the African context, resurrects itself after COVID and what they're looking to do. I mean, I think most will be happy to get up and running as soon as possible, and then take stock of what's happening on the development front. I think there's probably going to be a bit of a shift. I don't know whether there's going to be as many 5-star lodges with all the bells and whistles and the air conditionings and basically a hotel, that the Uber hotel in the bush. I think you're probably going to see maybe a bit more expedition type safaris emerge, maybe more of on the affordable front. I am, like many people, are guessing a bit, but I think that's logically where it looks like it might be headed for a while. Design-wise, I think, designers, there's always going to be a requirement to convert somebody's dream and passion into something tangible, and hopefully there's enough people like you, Beks, around to do that with them going forward. I think Africa deserves the attention it gets.
What you're suggesting is that we don't have exclusivity with you. You mean you're not going to do work with anybody else, are you? I mean, when you say enough,
if you line me up for the next 2 years, I'm here. You know what I mean? I think Africa has a lot to be proud of, and I think one of the critical things about what we all do in the African context is make sure that these wild spaces are left as a place to visit for the next people that come, you know, and this whole model is very important to keep going, and because otherwise I fear that we as a species are just going to walk in there and make them disappear. So I really hope that there's a massive push to keep these things going and develop them further, but in the sensitive, proper way that you know, we can look back and be proud of what we've left as a legacy, and not something that people go, oh, what the hell is that thing they're doing? So I think that we really do have this delicate balance to walk. You know, we've already kind of walked into the living room of the African wilderness, and without knocking on the front door, and done our bit. And now we need to sort of start consolidating our place in this ecosystem, and make sure we improve things and leave a better legacy than what's happened up until now. And I think, yeah, as I say, Africa has a lot to be proud of. In most of the, when you talk about the trends in the safari market going over the pond to South America, India, you know, the technology that we have developed in Africa is at the forefront, I think, worldwide. I mean, a lot of the development on that front has happened here in Southern Africa, and there's a lot to be proud of. And there's many front runners in the market in that regard. And certainly we are looking at, we're getting inquiries from all over the world interested in what we do, you know, and people who have experienced the safari in various parts of Africa now wanting to recreate something, sometimes in their backyard in a mansion in Hollywood. You know, there is certainly an impact that the safari experience is having on the accommodation trends worldwide, I believe. So yeah, I think we're going to be looking beyond the borders of Africa. Well, we already are, but I think there might, with a bit of luck, be a bit more of that coming our way. Yeah, going forward.
So, I mean, what we would love to do at this point is to show off some of the incredible work from the render images that we first started off with. And some of these actually backdate, as Debra said, 6 years ago, when we started to design. Believe it or not, I mean, artists come up with the most incredible, they really get into our heads, and they really get it. And this is an artistic impression. You would think that was a live photograph, and this is also another artist impression of what we had envisioned and what we wanted to design. And going on from there, the end product is actually 99.9% of what we envisaged out. So from these artistic renders and impressions, perhaps we can go into what it actually looks like today. What is it that gets can actually experience live when they arrive at Khwai Leadwood? We've really tried to make sure that when people arrive, no matter what time of the year, I mean, the place is really geared up for both winter and summers. I mean, our peak season is obviously during the course of winter. Summers are not as busy. For some reason, people seem to think that because it's the green season, you would see less, and you'd have an inferior experience. My experience of the green season actually is that all your wildlife is in their best. They're happy, good enough food. Most of the animals are actually calving that time of the year. So actually, the bush is looking at its best, and we're still able to see the quality of wildlife. But again, this place really blends in to the natural environments, and you know, Chris and Debra have really done well in making sure that we achieve what we call this indoor outdoor experience, where despite the fact that you're inside your tent, you're looking out and it feels like you're actually outside under the tree or in the middle of the river, and the camp really sort of emanates that. So we're lucky enough to obviously have the Khwai community on our doorstep. And most of our staff actually come from that community. And it's not always easy to be able to involve local components. But one of the things that we've done, which is always the case when you build a project, is that the people that help you build are usually people from the local area. And then you try and identify people that are really interested in getting in with the local build. But one of the things that has been absolutely amazing is that we've worked with a local who actually owns the land, and he's very passionate about his people. He's actually somebody who works with the local community. So he's been very he's really pushed the envelope in terms of us working with local people. And that's something that Dutch, you guys have embraced, and you continue to embrace. What's it looking like on the ground in terms of a community like Khwai? I mean, they've been hit quite hard, like most communities in Botswana, where people are now sitting in their villages at home, or people are back in town. People aren't quite as engaged or involved in working at the moment. I'm sure people are pretty excited to have these borders opened. And do you want to maybe tell us a little bit more about what's the word on the streets in the community? That's for you, Dutch.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Beks. It's a bit of a challenge. At least this was a year for agriculture, I'd say. Though the people live in Khwai cannot have that ability to grow crops on rear of livestock because it's in a wildlife area. But at least several companies, along with the trust, they helped the local people with food, and because some of them is part of our staff, I would say like the high percentage of our manpower is from the community. Reason being that they can demonstrate knowledge much better than someone coming from the city on his ground. If you're talking about the predators that we have in that area, so then they'll tell you exactly that these 3 male lions, they came from the western side of the area. They came in here, they settled here on those years, and then they mated with this pride, and now we have this pride now. So this is the kind of knowledge that they have, and at least harvesting of the wild fruits, vegetables like the water lily. So most of the people, they've done a lot of fishing, uh, picking up some wild fruits from the bush. And remember, they lived this life for many years. It was not a super stress to them. So then they really switched from these modern exercises to their culture. So then,
Simplistic, the simplistic way of life, which is really
yeah,
kind of gone a long way in helping them survive and adapt to these times.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Thanks very much.
mm,
I think we've seen that in Zimbabwe as well, and the same in Zambia, where our large staff, and maybe there's a lesson to be learned in that with all of us as human beings, is the simplicity of life that we all revert back to, that is not too demanding on resources, and that's where people have been able to adapt a lot more and adapt to these times where they're living off the land, and the demands of the modern high life is not strenuous in terms of our personal resources. But with that, I just want to wrap this up and just acknowledge the audience and the support that we've had this evening. Thank you very much to you, and again to all of you guys for helping us create the magic that people have always known us for. And may you continue to do that. May you continue to inspire others to do that. And all the best with your other projects in the new norm as this whole thing rolls out in the future. And we hope to continue working with you guys on our future projects around Africa. So thank you very much to you guys. And thank you again to Under the Influence and to Kara for sponsoring this evening. And we'll catch you guys in the next, the other side of the world, at least post-COVID.
Post-COVID.
Thanks. Thanks
May
for
that,
that.
may that travel again soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Nice chatting, everyone.